Namaste. Good morning, beautiful souls. Welcome to my channel. My name is Sadhana. And today, as per the thumbnail, we're back with the Wildwood Tarot, and we're going to have a look at the cross-quarter days and some more of the guardians in the deck. I do not have everything laid out already today, so I think this is a really good opportunity to grab your decks, and we'll kind of go through this together and lay out the wheel, the days that we're looking at, step by step as we review some of the cards. And I thought I would also like to talk about some of the synchronicities that have happened with draws over the past little while. This bag I just found in my cupboard. This is one that I got a while back from Bubba Studios, and this is my new bag for my Wildwood. It just kind of perfect. So welcome, Danielle. Thanks for being here this morning, and anybody else in the background, and we will get started right away. So go ahead and grab your decks, because today we're going to be looking at 2, 4, 6, 8, at least 8 different cards and their associated cards. Oh, but before I get to that, okay, here we go. I want to talk about the reading I did yesterday for the Facebook group, which is linked in the description box below if you want to join us on that journey as well too. And in that particular reading, I did one of the spreads from, I think it's in the Wild Magic book. I'm sure if you know, there's 3 of the books from this one. And it was the World Tree spread. Beautiful spread. A little bit too large to do for live readings, but it's a wonderful spread. I highly recommend all of the books that go with this deck. So I posted that yesterday in the Facebook group, and the intention with the readings in the Facebook group is it's kind of a inspirational general message for the 80 or so people that are in the group. And the final card that came up in that reading was the 5 of Swords. The key word for that is, so it's right here, is frustration, this card here. And we have an archer, we have a goat, and we have 5 swords taking off into the air. And the reason that this is so synchronistic, especially if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, is that this is the card of this few days around now. And to have that card come up during the actual time that this card is in its peak of energy is pretty magical. The other thing that happened in that reading, I'm not going to shuffle these cards because we're going to be sorting them, is that also the shaman appeared. And the shaman appeared in the position of what to take with you. So the other synchronistic thing in that reading was that we are starting in the group to study The Way of the Shaman by Michael Harner in the book club part of the group. And to have this one pop up as what to take with us, I thought, wow, you really, really, really can't make these things up. And I have just been feeling very supported by this deck and very grateful that I have decided to come back to it and work with it again. Yesterday, I joined the Facebook Wildwood Tarot group. There's a few questions that some of you have asked that I would love to see if there are any posts on. And so I haven't had time to scour the group for the relevant posts, but that's something I definitely am going to do. After today, next Tuesday, I will be going to the Marielle Tarot and doing a few videos on the Marielle and coming back to the Wildwood from time to time. And also I'll be addressing the Wildwood in the Facebook group. What I wanted to say was I'm going to start collecting all of your questions and comments that pertain to reflections on certain cards and the interaction between certain cards in this deck. And then the next time I come back with a video on this deck, I'll be answering your questions. And some of them are really good because there's many layers to this deck that are not clearly explained in any of the books. Not many, a couple. Yeah. Okay, so hi, Kristen, or hello again. Nice to see you. Let's go down to the table. Let's add the table to the stream, first of all. The other thing too is that the language, this is something I like to do every time I pull out this deck. As I'm sorting through it, I like to draw out the wheel and just reinforce everything that I already know. And so the shaman goes to the left in the season of arrows. The moon goes down near the winter. Any stone cards that come up are going to go down here. And so just start to sort your cards as you know, from what you're comfortable with. Bows go at the top, vessels go over here. Okay, and if you're not sure where some of the cards go, then just place them to the side. So I just need 1 second, and I thought we could do this together because it just makes it so much easier. Yeah, I was kind of distracted. So the seer goes in the center next to the shaman. Again, stones at bottom. World tree goes at the top, touching the bows. And we did this one already. Green woman goes up here. I'm going to move the bows a little higher. The green man. Stones, bows, vessels. Okay. And then remember, the sun and the moon are opposite each other. So the sun is also part of the upper half of the wheel, according to this deck. And that is one of the topics that I am going to talk about, because there appears to be more than one layer to the sun and the moon in this deck. And that is something that I'm presently reflecting on. So beyond the energy of the cards themselves, there's a couple of different cycles. So the Guardian goes over here. 78 cards is a lot of cards, isn't it? The Stag, the Wheel, the Arrows, the Archer, Bows. I'm sure some of you are probably faster than me at this. Actually, the Archer goes over here. And then I pause looking at these cards. And this was a wonderful question from Anna that came up yesterday. Anna Smith. This card we were talking about when we were looking at the winter solstice, the Great Bear, the judgment card in this deck. And her beautiful inquiry was to look at the relationship between the Six of Vessels and the judgment card, which when I get it, I will show you here. So just have a look at these two side by side. It's quite incredible. So thank you, Anna, for that observation. We're not going to address that today, but I will definitely get to that in a future video. Okay. I think that's good. We're done here. And bows go up here. Right, so quite a mess of cards. And if you had a huge table, you could lay them out in this beautiful, beautiful pattern. I'm going to take away the liners. I've been using this deck a lot for readings lately, and I can't say how much fun it is to play with a deck over a longer period of time. It really is such a good practice. Okay, so let's just review, kind of go starting at the very bottom layer. And this was a good kind of recap for everything that we've looked at so far. So the Wheel of the Year in all of the references in these guidebooks is divided in half. Not with Yule at the top, which is how it's often drawn in many, many graphics, but they have the summer solstice at the top. So Litha is at the top and Yule is at the bottom. The bottom half of the wheel, there is this energy of the moon that over here at the autumnal equinox is the strongest, and then it begins to wane as we move towards the spring equinox, and then the sun has its strength on the top half of the wheel with its apex at the summer solstice, the apex of the moon at the winter solstice. And then on the inner hub of the wheel, we have these guardians that support the energy of the seasons. The season of winter in this deck. And if you haven't gone through this already with us, the seasons in this deck they start at the cross quarters. So what that means is, we're going to look at this right now. The season of spring started at Imbolc at February 1st. The deck and the creators also recognize, of course, the beginning of spring at the equinox. And so there's two beginnings that kind of happen right here. Sorry, Amber's just leaving for a walk. And this can get really confusing, but it just gives us more markers and more references to places where we can begin any projects that we're starting, places that are synchronistically, cyclically appropriate to begin something. And I think this deck, more than anything, helps us to realize how important it is, or not important, how useful it is to start aligning everything that we do with natural cycles of the earth. This is a very earth-based deck. Let me just turn this so you can see me as well too. Okay. And I'm going to do my best to keep an eye in the chat. So go ahead and make sure if you have any questions you want to ask, to let me know. So today we're looking at the cross quarters, which I call them cross quarters. So Imbolc, Beltane, Lughnasadh or Lammas, and Samhain. These are the ones we're going to look at. Some people call these the quarter days. The language around cross quarter and quarter in different books gets interchanged. So today when I'm using cross quarter, I'm talking about the 4 that we're looking at today. Some of the things I have, research I've done says the quarter days, so the equinoxes and the solstices were the days when the landlords collected rent from the tenants, and these were the days when the communities got together in celebration. But I'm not sure that's entirely accurate. So just be aware that different references, will call cross quarter and quarter days different things. To the best of my knowledge, the word Sabbath can be used for any of them. So we're going to start over here. So if you're looking at your wheel in the book, with the energy of Imbolc, which is behind us in the northern hemisphere and ahead of us in the southern hemisphere. And Imbolc, February 1st, is the beginning of the Celtic spring. Let me take off my my name tag, and then you'll have more. You'll have more space on the table. The pole star and the ancestor welcome in the spring, and you can see very clearly here in the ancestor card we have this transition. We have the waxing crescent moon in the background, and the ancestor is sitting here at the edge of the forest welcoming us into the wildwood. The ancestor is a protector, a guardian, a wise one. And it's almost, this card is very much like an invitation to step forward on your journey. And we have these 2 beautiful journey cards that start here at Imbolc. I just need to change a couple things here. Pardon me, technical things make it easier for me. There we go. So these 2 cards welcome us in. This beautiful card here is on the cover of one of the books. And if you notice down in the very center of this card, we have the Fool here. And I know as a reader, sometimes I forget that the Fool is on the journey throughout the whole major arcana, and we don't always visually or energetically see the Fool throughout the Fool's journey, the hero's journey, the path through the major arcana. But in this deck, you actually have the Fool here going into the Wildwood, being guided by the light of the pole star. So this is the beginning of the spring, when we're transitioning from the harshest part of the winter. This is Saint Brigide's Day. This is the time of when the farmers start to actually have hope again that everything's going to be okay. So this is a beautiful, beautiful energy here. We also, and last week, we looked at the spring equinox, which comes right here, which has different guardians. Okay, so we're also going to look at the minors in a second, but let's just lay out the 8 guardians for the 4 cross quarter days. That's great, Danielle. It's fun, isn't it? It's so much fun to play with the cards. Okay, so we go Imolc, and then this is the spring equinox. And yes, I have to pause sometimes because the words don't always roll off my tongue. And then we go to Beltane. So Beltane is May 1st. And this is so easy to remember. We have a maypole in both of these cards. And in one, we have the lovers, and in the other, we have the 2 snakes representing the divine masculine and feminine. This is just an incredible pair of cards to bring in the energy of Beltane. And to me, where I live in the world, this feels like the beginning of spring. This is when we really start to see the spring blossoms. And I've talked about this many times. The energy of the seasons is very relative to where you live. And when you're working with a deck like this, you have the opportunity to, I don't want to be stuck in dates, because dates are, what are dates? Dates are a construct, something that's created by man. Dates are not a natural thing. What is natural is to observe the seasons and to observe the energy around us. And if this feels, we're going to all have different experiences with the seasons. That's all I'm saying. But this one is pretty easy to remember. I think of May 1st as the maypole, Beltane, lovers. There's a real sense of lightness to May 1st. Way more of a lightness to May 1st than there is to Imolc. Okay. The stag and the archer were there. Okay. Pause. Just need to move a few things out of the way. It is a lot of cards, and I have very little space here on the table. And we did this one. So now I'm going to skip over to Samhain. Well, I'll just put that one there. So we have the death card at Samhain, of course. And you just keep on sorting with me. And I seem to be missing. We have the woodwork. Oh, here we go. Okay. The green man and the green woman were there. We did that last video. Okay. So now we go over here to August 1st. And August 1st, I love these cards as well too. So in the Wildwood Tarot at August 1st, and remember now we are directly across the wheel from February 1st. And if you are in the Southern Hemisphere, this of course is February 1st. And this one is August 1st. And if you're reading for somebody in the Southern Hemisphere, swapping those dates back and forth is really, really helpful when you are have the kindness and the mindset to be able to flip the dates for people on the other side of the world. So in the Northern Hemisphere in summer, the woodward, or the wood ward, the ward of the wood, much like, sorry, let me find my angle here. There you go. The ward of the wood, much like the ancestor that we saw across the way. So we have the wood ward bringing in the summer. Sorry, for me, this is summer. This is the end of summer in this particular deck. So this is the end of summer, bringing in the autumn. And so across the pathway, we have the ancestor. And both of these act as guardians. They're very strong, intense cards. Let's go back over here. So the wood ward is with the lynx. And then we have the blasted oak. This is the strength card in this deck, not the justice card. Okay, so just keep that in mind. And the blasted oak is another one that takes a little bit of time to do some reflection on. In the blasted oak, it's not only the energy of the tower, but we have also the hanged man energy represented here. So it's some kind of a combo of all of that. Plus, there is this beautiful reflection. You'll have to go back to the last video to check this out, but this awareness of the energy of the consequences of not being responsible for the abundance of the summer. We were talking last time about the 6 of bows, the 6 of fire, that is at the summer equinox. I'll just see if I can get that really fast for you, because this is a incredible insight into understanding the blasted oak. Okay, where are you? Here you are. So at the peak of the summer, the 6 that is at the June 21st, June 21st, midsummer solstice is the 6 of bows. The keyword is abundance. And one of the keywords in all of the descriptors is responsibility, the responsibility for what to do when one is in this particular situation. And the creators of the deck speak to the blasted oak as perhaps sometimes a consequence of not being responsible for one's abundance. If we don't use our resources effectively, sometimes nature takes over. And there's this whole energy throughout the Wildwood Tarot of being extremely respectful and aware of the power of nature. And these 2 cards move us from the season of bows to the season of vessels. So in the Northern Hemisphere, from the season of summer to the season of winter. And then Samhain. So here we go with Samhain. So the wheel should be here. This was at, yes, I say yesterday, it was last week. So we'll just take that one out of the way because we don't need it. And then at Samhain, we have the journey and the guardian. Perhaps, so this is the pathway that leads us into the Celtic New Year. And at the end of the year, we are in this place of completely surrendering, completely releasing. There's a focus on, when I see cards where the carrion is eating at the carcass of another animal, I'm just thinking, sometimes we don't clean the bone dry. We don't get rid of all of the toxic waste. We leave these little bits of these memories lingering on. There's nothing wrong with having memories and photos and a little trinket of this and that, but sometimes we cling to those. And one of the things that comes up for me in this particular card, this death card, is the importance of really letting something die. In order to move forward, we need to let things die, completely die, and not hold on to any aspect of the regrets or the guilt or whatever. And so this is such a perfect combo at Samhain, because this is the death of the guilt. This is the death of all of those patterns that hold us back. And so it's Samhain, we have this opportunity to fully surrender and to fully, fully let go. Okay. Kind of a mess of cards, huh? Let's go back over here. As you are aware from the previous videos, Kristen asks, what is around the man's wrist and ankles? What is around the man's wrist and ankles? It's fur of some kind. I will have to look in the guidebook. I'm not sure what kind of fur it is, or if it even says. So he is adorned with, he has the same lynx hood and cape as the protector in front of him. So he is doubly connected and doubly connected and protected and linked with the lynx. We have not gone through all of the minors in every suit. At the beginning of each of these cross quarters, at the February 1st, the season is welcomed in by the ace. And so at the February 1st, the energy is the ace of arrows. At Beltane, we'll get to that in a second, is an ace. And then we have an ace here and an ace here. So that makes it really kind of easy to remember if you are kind of looking at tarot timings. The sixes come midway along the journey. So equidistant between February, well, we've already done this. Equidistant between February 1st and May 1st, we have the Six of Arrows. So the sixes come at the solstices and the equinoxes. Try to keep this really simple, and I get even tripping up over my own words here. Notice also too that the key word on the aces, they all end with of life. So the ace of arrows is the breath of life, and the ace of fire is the spark of life, if I can find it. The ace that moves the transition into, where is this? What is this? Autumn. Love this card. Is the waters of life. And then the foundation of life. I don't know. There's just something about those keywords. It's really quite profound. Ooh, let's go to Danielle's reflection. The ropes are burning off. Because of the lag in the chat. Because of the lag in the chat, sometimes I'm way behind your comments. But you're talking about the blasted man. Yeah. So the hanged man is being released. The hangman is being released. If the hangman surrenders to the natural forces, he will be released. And that release is not always an easy one. Sometimes that release can take you into a bit of a spiral dive. All right, so that's kind of how this sits with the minors as well as the major guardians for the cross quarters. And then we also have that layer of the court cards, which is really, really confusing in this deck, and it just takes a little bit of time to understand. So the at the beginning of the season we have the kings, and the end of the season we have the pages. And so one of the things that I like to do is to just put all 16 court cards out, and to kind of, or perhaps because if you're in this season, to really focus on the 4 that are for our present season, which is King, which is behind us, Swan, which is where we are now, and then when it comes to the equinox, just past the equinox, so March 22nd, March 23rd, these dates are all according to Alison Cross's book. And then at the end of spring, we have the Page of Arrows. So the Page of Arrows touches Beltane, as does the King of Bows. Queen, King, and that's the adder. That's the adder. So at Beltane, for example, we have a whole whack of cards that are present. So let's separate these out and just use Beltane as an example. These are really beautiful ways to help understand if a querent is in kind of sync with the natural energy of what's going on. So suppose you're doing your reading around Beltane. Suppose energetically your reading is around Beltane, or perhaps this is their birthday and their birthday is around May 1st, and there's something about the timing that feels relevant to your reading. If any or many of these cards appear, if you have an abundance of high arrows and low bows, you know that there's something about the present that is really, really powerful for the querent. We are moving from the energy of the shaman to the world tree. So these are also major shifts in energy. So the guide, the inner hub of the wheel is shifting from the shaman to the world tree. This is also a shift from the weakest energy of the moon, the weakest energy of the moon to the weakest energy of the sun. Remember that bottom layer. And if I get any of this wrong, I'm sorry. Doing my best here to weave this all together for you. And then we have an ace. So we have an ace of bows here on May 1st. And we have just left the energy of the wren, and we're moving into so I guess the wren would be done. And so these would be your cards for Beltane. So what I was saying about the reading I did in the Facebook group yesterday was that we had some very synchronistic cards come up. And one of them was the minor arcana that is associated with the reading. There was a double synchronicity with the shaman, because the shaman is the guardian of this time, but also because the shaman is the energy that we're working with in the group. It's just very cool to work with these synchronicities. So that's as far as I wanted to go today with this, but I'm going to go through the chat and see if you have any questions or anything that I can help respond to. I really, really like the blasted oak. I find every time this comes up in a reading, there's something, I don't know, there's a lot that is revealed in this card. It's much more than a simple tower card. Okay. Yeah, the aces are very, you know, Danielle, can't you feel because of the language of the aces, I feel much like in a Rider-Waite, you know, that hand of God that's presenting. Like, these are big, big cards, and they are so beautifully written about in the guidebooks, and they describe how the, so for example, there's a beautiful description about this historic place in the UK, and how the Huffington horse, and what the energy of this area is. And specifically here, we're at the eye of this horse, the energy of the smoke. Like, the descriptions of these cards are so beautiful, and they feel like they're connected through time. They are deeply inspired aces. I guess that's one way to say that. Okay. So thank you. Thank you for walking through this with me. And like I said, I'm collecting your questions, and I will continue to be doing readings with this deck. Today, I'm also doing live readings with another small spread from the original guidebook for the deck. And I will come back in a few weeks' time after I've collected enough questions to do another video. And I really encourage you to follow along with the Wheel of the Year and keep using this deck for an extended period of time, because it's really quite something. And you'll get to know the energy of the guardians and the court cards, the animal protectors, and how they fit into all of this. I suppose in closing, the question, and maybe this is something that you want to chat about in the comments below, Banyan Oak and Pine. Banyan Oak and Pine was feeling very confused about the waxing and the waning moon cycles of the deck. And we appear, if you read the guidebooks carefully, we appear to have two patterns of the moon in this deck. One is the specific energy of this card, which is at its strongest at the winter solstice. And so we have a semicircle cycle, if you will, of the moon that goes from the equinox to equinox. This one peaking at the summer solstice that goes at the top half of the circle. And then there's this other layer that they talk about in the book of the moon around the whole Wheel of the Year, which starts at February 1st. And then there's another layer of the sun taking its full journey, which also starts at the spring equinox, where it starts its semicircle pattern also as just the card, as the 19th card. So yeah, so I'm going to try to wrap my head around this and do a little bit of research. I may reach out to Allison, Mark, and John and see if I could get them on my channel, one of them, to have a discussion about this, because I would love to interview them about the deck, but also take some time to scour the Wildwood Tarot study group on Facebook, because I think there may be some answers there as well too. Yeah. Alrighty, so thank you for being a part of this, and I really look forward to hearing from you more questions and things that. Just looking to Danielle. Thank you for working with this deck. Oh, you're very welcome. Yeah, it's my pleasure. And as you know, I really like this deck. All right, so I will see some of you soon, and stay well and keep the questions coming. I really enjoy carrying on these conversations. Namaste.